On the morning of December 26, 1996, in Boulder, Colorado, a quiet suburban home became the center, most controversial and widely debated cases in American history.
Inside that home lived a young girl, known to many for her appearances in pageant events.
Full of energy and charm. By the end of that morning, she would be at the center of a mystery that remains unsolved to this day. The day began with panic. Patsy Ramsey, JonBenet's mother, called 911 shortly after waking up. Her voice was frantic. She reported that her daughter had been kidnapped. According to Patsy, she had discovered a ransom note
Inside the house, one that mentioned a specific amount in connection with her safe return.
The note was unusual. It was long, over 2 pages, and written in a style that investigators later described as strange and theatrical. It contained specific instructions, warnings, and references that didn't seem typical of a real incident. Even more puzzling, the amount mentioned closely matched a recent bonus received by a family member.
Police arrived quickly. However, from the very beginning, the case took an unusual turn.
Instead of treating the house as a secured crime scene, friends and family members were allowed to enter. People moved around freely, potentially contaminating evidence without realizing it. Hours passed. JonBenét was nowhere to be found. Then, later that day, a family member made a discovery that shifted everything. Inside a small room in the basement, he found his daughter's body. She had been hidden from view, turning what was initially believed to be a kidnapping into a murder investigation. The entire situation shifted instantly. Investigators now had to determine what had happened inside that house and who was responsible. From the start, the case was filled with conflicting clues. There were no clear signs of forced entry. The ransom note appeared to have been written using materials found inside the home. Some investigators believed this suggested that whoever wrote the note had spent time inside the house. Suspicion quickly focused on those closest to JonBenét. The Ramsey family became central to the investigation. Their behavior, statements, and actions were closely examined. At the same time, the media began covering the case intensely, turning it into a national story almost overnight. Every detail was analyzed. The ransom note became one of the most debated pieces of evidence. Handwriting experts were brought in, but results were inconclusive. Some believed Patsy Ramsey may have written the note, while others argued there was not enough proof to support that claim. Then there was the timeline. Investigators tried to reconstruct what happened during the night of December 25th. The family had returned home after attending a Christmas party. JonBenét was reportedly put to bed, and everything seemed normal. So what changed? One theory suggested that an intruder had entered the home, committed the crime, and left without being detected. Another theory pointed toward the possibility of an incident occurring within the family, followed by an attempt to stage the scene. Both theories had supporters, and both had flaws. Years passed, and the investigation continued. In 1999, a grand jury was convened to review the evidence. While there were discussions about possible charges, no indictments were ultimately filed. The case remained unresolved.
Advancements in forensic science later brought new hope. DNA evidence was analyzed, and results suggested
the presence of unknown male DNA. This led some investigators to revisit the intruder theory. However, the source and significance of the DNA have been debated, leaving more questions than answers. Public opinion remained divided. Some believed the truth lay within the household. Others were convinced that an outsider was responsible. The lack of definitive evidence allowed multiple theories to coexist, each supported by different interpretations of the facts. What made the JonBenét Ramsey case so complex was not just the crime itself, but the way it was handled in the early stages.
Mistakes at the crime scene, intense media coverage, and conflicting information created an environment
where clarity became difficult to achieve. Over time, the case became more than just an investigation, as it became a symbol of unresolved mystery. Even decades later, people continue to ask the same questions. Who wrote the ransom note? How did the crime occur without clear signs of forced entry? Why has no one been definitively identified as responsible? Despite numerous investigations, interviews, and analyses,
the case remains officially unsolved. The house where it all happened has since changed.
The people involved have moved on, and the world has changed. But the mystery remains. And perhaps the most haunting part of all is that the answer may have been there, from the very beginning, lost in the confusion of that morning. Hidden in overlooked details, one question still remains. What truly happened inside that house on that cold December night? About a crime, it is about uncertainty, unanswered questions, and the search for truth in a case where every clue seems to lead in a different direction. And until that truth is finally uncovered, one question continues to linger. What really happened inside that house on that cold December night?